Well, alrighty then. I started working on the rudder, and one good thing came out of this. I'll get to the bad stuff later. We'll do the good news first. So this is the old tiller handle right here. This is a big old piece of aluminum pipe that is the original Macgregor tiller handle. And my buddy who works on really old houses found me a few pieces of really old growth mahogany. And so what I had to do is I had to laminate these together, and I built a tiller out of that. I had to make a little tiller holder with the metal so it doesn't dig into the wood, and that will fit into the castle, which this is called the rudder castle. It's actually what the rudder goes into, and the tiller goes onto it also. It's going to go in like that. I still have to drill that hole. That's going to look pretty cool. That was the good news. Now on to the bad news. So I started sanding down the rudder, and the previous owner, he would keep this boat in the water on the Tennessee River in Chattanooga. He's the original owner of this boat. And he used to keep it in the water. Well, it got osmosisized. I think I made that word up just now. So I knew it had some pock marks in it. It had a few here, and I started digging a few of them out. But once I really started getting into it, and I started flipping this up, you can start seeing a bunch more. There's so much more here, and they are bubbles. You can even hear them crack. Yeah, and they are all over this thing. I priced out new rudders on Ruddercraft and Blue Water Yachts, and they want about $500 for a new rudder. And I'm like, spending $500 on a boat that might be worth $2,000, just, I don't know. It's a little bit too much for me. I can refair this with some thickened epoxy, and then I'm going to go ahead and paint it. But I gotta dig out all these holes. My rudder looks like the face of the moon now. Yuck. Well, it's Sunday. I got the reggae on, and we got a beer in hand. So it's a labor of love. Oh, the doggy wants to throw the ball. You want to throw the ball? Do you? Well, I guess not. All right. It is late fall. We actually got the boat out on the water, and I will post those videos one of these days. So I'm back to the rudder, actually. With the rudder surface looking like the moon in the last little bit, I ended up fixing a lot of the bubbles, osmosis bubbles, and I ended up painting her and everything, and I faired it out pretty good. A couple little marks here that I could have done a little better with, but I wanted to get it out on the water, so I did. About a month or so ago. So we pulled the boat back in and pulled the rudder off, and this rudder was filled with water. I was like, dadgunnit. So somehow the water leaked into one of my holes, which I had filled a lot of this up with resin. Man, it was expensive. So I'm starting all over again. I wanted to see what was inside this rudder. So I drilled out a couple of holes, and there's teak in here. But the weird thing is, I figured there'd be some kind of wood in here, but the weird thing is, I've drilled one out here in the middle. There's teak here, but I also drilled, when I actually got into it, I could see down into the rudder, there's a spot here that is totally empty through here. So I ended up drilling a 1/2-inch hole just to see what's in there, and it's totally empty. So the front of this rudder has a cavity in it that's just actually totally empty. And this teak, there must be a big teak board that runs right up the middle of it. It must be just one piece of board, and then they fiberglassed around the edge here, the leading edge and the trailing edge here, and left it empty. It's all empty in there. And kind of wonder how they did that. It was pretty interesting. You can see the line of the teak right here. So there is one big teak board in the middle of this rudder. That was pretty interesting. So you can see where I had patched it before, all of the bubbles, and I got it watertight, except like I said, water was entering in one of these holes. So what I did was I over drilled these holes. I'm going to drill and fill these holes and drill the smaller hole for each of the bolts. So hopefully it will not leak. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill this up also. I'm going to make this a nice heavy rudder here. I'm going to fill this up. I'm probably only going to use fiberglass resin because it's a lot cheaper, just for the inside here. The epoxy is really expensive. And then I'm going to put my holes back in, and I'm probably going to lay some biaxial cloth like over this, and then fair it out so it'll be really smooth again. Because I got to do 3 holes now, since I drilled 3 holes in this thing. So I'm going to have to seal these in really well, and then fair it, and then sand it down again. So back to the drawing board on it. And I think the doggy wants to play some ball. You want to play some ball? Huh? Do ya? No? You don't want to? Alright, we'll play ball later. Well, we are back on the rudder. So today we are about to ferret. It's almost Christmas, so I got my Bing Crosby on. I've got my heaters because I'm out in the garage. It's raining today. So I'm going to try to get this garage up to temperature so this epoxy cures. So I was able to get these cutouts back in, and I've got a nylon mesh that's holding them in, of course, epoxy and everything. Right here I've got all of them actually in, so they're not going to go anywhere. I ended up filling this whole leading edge with fiberglass resin, so it is solid. I mean, this thing's a lot heavier now, so it'll probably stay down a little better. I mean, it stays down, you know, as long as you lock the rope in, you know, so. But I've got that all filled up, and I've got my holes here. They're drilled and filled, so I'm going to drill the smaller holes in here for the bolts for the rudder castle and for the rope to pick up the swing keel. So pretty much getting this ready to fair right now. I've got it all sanded down, and I even got one more little bubble that I found, so I'm going to fix that. And hopefully this thing will be waterproof. Ready with all my epoxy stuff, my thickeners and everything, so about to get on this thing. So Merry Christmas, everybody. I've got some Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer playing. It's awesome. Well, it's almost Christmas. We got the boat in the boat hangar. And we're back to the rudder. So I have put those cutouts in here. And they are looking really nice. I'm going to do one more layer of fairing over this edge here. That one turned out really good. As you see, all of the osmosis blisters that I have fixed, it really does look like the moon now. So right now, I am actually about to fair one last time, and we're going to sand it down. I think it should be pretty good. I'm going to have to drill the holes right in here where I filled them with epoxy. And I'll tell you what, this rudder should be watertight now with all the work I've done on this doggone thing. I really thought about getting a new rudder. They sell them on Ruddercraft and Blue Water Yachts, but they are $600 with shipping. Pretty doggone expensive for a $2,000 boat. So I am working on this thing, and we are going to make it doggone watertight. And I'm going to enjoy my Christmas music. Merry Christmas. Reka? Are we having a Merry Christmas? Yes, we are. We want to throw the ball. Do we want to throw the ball? Do we? Good girl.
Cause every little thing is gonna be alright. Singing, don't worry about a thing. Cause every little thing is gonna be alright. Rise up this morning, smile with the rising sun. Three little birds perched by
The rudder is done. Finally, after redoing her twice basically, I think we've got a good solid rudder now. I ended up painting her white because I think she looks a lot better with the white swim deck and the white of the upper deck here. But she turned out pretty good. Got one or two little pock marks right here. Nothing major. It's going to be underwater most of the time. I've got her attached to the rudder castle. And the original Macgregors, they had a steel line here. I really didn't like it, so I'm going to go with the good old nylon braided line here. The steel line was actually rubbing into the rudder castle pretty badly in some spots, so especially on the bottom here. I don't know if I can get a picture of that. It was rubbing into there really badly. So we've got her kicked up at the moment, and then I'll put her down here in a second. Let me try to slowly lower her here. There she goes. She looks pretty good. I wanted to show the tiller real quick. Jump up here on the ladder. Right here we have our tiller handle made of the mahogany, and it's turned out really good. the original aluminum one. I'm keeping it stowed down the bottom just in case this thing breaks. I don't think it will. She's pretty solid. But ultimately, I think we have our steering system all done. Awesome. Oh my gosh, this is a nasty job. I am furry.